The wind carried the scent of smoke for miles. From the slopes of the Pyrenees, the people of Languedoc could see it, a column of black rising against the pale blue sky, where Montségur stood. It was over. 225 Cathars had walked into the flames without hesitation, without fear. The Crusaders thought they had erased a heresy from the earth, but before the last embers cooled, a whisper passed among the survivors and sympathizers who had escaped the siege. In 700 years, the laurel will turn green again, and we will return. The words were more than a prophecy, they were a promise, sown like seeds into the soil of time. The centuries that followed were not kind to the Cathar memory. Their fortresses crumbled, their books were destroyed, their names were turned into curses by the church. The troubadour songs that once carried hidden messages of the light became love ballads stripped of their deeper meaning. For most of the world, the Cathars were gone, a ghostly footnote in the chronicles of medieval France. But deep in the valleys of Languedoc, in small villages beneath the shadow of ruined castles, the old stories lingered. Grandmothers whispered them to children by the hearth. Shepherds told them on lonely mountain paths, not as history, but as something stranger, a warning, a longing, a half-forgotten truth that refused to die. The centuries turned, and Europe entered an age of revolutions, industry, and war. The ruins of Montségur stood in silence as armies marched across the continent in new uniforms, carrying rifles instead of swords. The prophecy seemed all but forgotten, until the 20th century came, and with it, a shaking of the old order. World War I left France wounded, millions dead, empires collapsed. In the years after, a strange hunger began to stir in the hearts of many, not for wealth or territory, but for meaning. The old religious structures no longer satisfied, the materialist philosophies of the New Age could not fill the void. And so, some began looking backward, not to the church that had burned dissenters, but to the suppressed streams of spiritual thought that had survived in whispers. In France, that search led to the Cathars. The year 1944 came like a shadow. France was under Nazi occupation. The Pyrenees became a dangerous borderland, a place of resistance fighters, refugees, and secrecy. But even amid war, there were those who remembered the date, 1244 plus 700 years. When the war ended in 1945, the laurel, the ancient symbol of victory and immortality, grew green again across the hills of Languedoc. And in that same year, far from France, in the Egyptian desert, a farmer uncovered an earthen jar buried for centuries. Inside were leather-bound codices containing dozens of ancient Gnostic writings, the Nag Hammadi library. Texts that mirrored the dualist worldview of the Cathars, long thought lost forever. For those who knew the prophecy, it was no coincidence. In the same prophetic window, hidden knowledge was returning to the world, knowledge that spoke of the soul's origin beyond matter, the false powers ruling this world, and the path back to the eternal light. By the early 1950s, Montségur was no longer just a ruin. It became a place of pilgrimage once again, not for armies or inquisitors, but for seekers. Historians, poets, mystics, and wanderers climbed its steep paths to stand on the stone platform where the Cathars had faced the flames. Some came out of curiosity, others came because they felt called. They brought flowers, placed their hands on the ancient stones, and swore silent oaths to keep the light alive in their own hearts. Rumors spread of small, secret gatherings in the valleys, groups who claimed a spiritual descent from the Perfecti, who performed quiet rites of blessing and initiation. Their teachings blended the memory of the Cathars with elements of modern mysticism, Hermetic thought, and Eastern philosophy. To most of the world, these movements passed unnoticed. But among certain esoteric circles, the phrase "the laurel has turned green" became a quiet password, a way of recognizing one another. Some believed the Perfecti had reincarnated into the 20th century, returning not to rebuild a religion, but to scatter the seeds of light in many forms: art, literature, healing work, acts of conscience against tyranny. They were no longer bound to Languedoc, their work spread across the world. Yet, not everyone agreed on what the prophecy meant. For some, it was a literal event, a fixed moment in history when the Cathar spirit returned. For others, the laurel's greening was never meant to be tied to a date at all. They saw it as a symbol, the awakening of the soul in any era, the moment a person remembers their divine origin and refuses to serve the false powers of this world. In that sense, the prophecy is fulfilled every time a spark of light breaks free from the prison of matter. Today, Montségur still stands. The wind still whistles through its broken walls. Every year, pilgrims still climb its slopes. Some come for history, some for beauty, and some because they feel something stirring in the air there, something that cannot be explained. Perhaps the laurel turned green in 1944, perhaps it has been turning green in secret for centuries. Or perhaps it is turning green right now, in you. That's the mystery and part of the beauty of the Cathar prophecy. Some historians and spiritual seekers say yes, the laurel has already turned green. Mid-20th century France saw a surge of interest in Cathar history, especially around Montségur. Pilgrims, researchers, and mystics gathered there again, almost exactly 700 years after 1244. Secret esoteric groups claimed to be reviving the Cathar spirit through new teachings and spiritual rites.
The rediscovery of ancient Gnostic texts, like the Nag Hammadi library in 1945, happened right in this prophetic window, which many see as a symbolic return of the light. Others say no, that the prophecy isn't about a specific date at all. They believe the green laurel is an inner awakening, meaning it turns green in every generation whenever a soul remembers its true origin and rejects the false powers of the world.